On the darkest, rain-soaked night of his life, a billionaire CEO found himself stranded on a lonely road, his car dead, his phone useless, his entire world unraveling. But when a single pair of headlights cut through the storm, he never expected the driver to be her. The woman who once cleaned his home, disappeared without a word, and carried a secret that could destroy everything he thought he knew. What began as a broken-down engine turned into a collision with fate, filled with regret, hidden love, and a truth he was never meant to uncover. Because that night, in the pouring rain, the past came back for him. And it came with a heartbeat. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. The rain poured down like shattered glass against the black sedan, the city lights smudged into streaks of silver on the windshield. Adrian Cole, CEO of Cole Enterprises, a man feared in boardrooms and envied in magazines, sat behind the wheel, his jaw tight. The car had sputtered, groaned, and died on a lonely stretch of road just outside the city. His phone flashed no signal. Of course. He sighed, pressing his forehead to the steering wheel. For once, the man who could buy anything couldn't buy his way out of a storm. Then, through the blur of rain, he saw movement. A figure approached, umbrella trembling in the wind, boots splashing through puddles. "Do you need help?" a voice called. Soft. Familiar. Adrian turned, wiping rain from his eyes, and froze. Standing before him was Elena Morales, his former maid. He remembered her vividly, the quiet young woman who had worked in his mansion years ago, before vanishing one morning without a word. She had been kind to his ailing mother, gentle with his spoiled younger sister, patient even when the house was chaos. He had barely spoken to her then, too consumed with his empire. But he had noticed her eyes, warm, but always shadowed by something unsaid. "Elena," he breathed, disbelief and a flicker of guilt twisting inside him. She looked at him, rain dripping from her hair, her expression unreadable. "Hello, Mr. Cole. Looks like you're the one who needs rescuing this time." Her tone was calm, almost teasing, but there was a weight behind it. He let out a shaky laugh. "Guess fate has a cruel sense of humor." She knelt by the car, inspecting the engine with practiced ease. "Battery's dead. You must have ignored the warning signs." He blinked. You know about cars?" She smiled faintly. "Life teaches you things when you can't afford not to learn." The rain grew heavier, thunder rolling like judgment. She offered him her umbrella, insisting she didn't mind the storm. He watched her, this woman he had once dismissed as invisible, moving with quiet strength. When they finally got the car running, he said softly, "You disappeared. One day you were gone. No goodbye." She hesitated. Sometimes, leaving is the only way to be seen. Something in her voice cracked the shell he'd built around himself. He asked where she was living now. She hesitated, then smiled, a small, secret smile. "Not far. Maybe I'll tell you, if you still remember how to say thank you." He wanted to ask more, but her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. "I have to go," she whispered, stepping back. "Elena, wait, what's wrong?" She shook her head, eyes glistening with tears. "You wouldn't believe me even if I told you." Then she turned and ran into the rain, vanishing down the road. Adrian stood there, heart pounding. On the wet asphalt, where she'd stood moments ago, lay a small silver pendant, engraved with the initials AC. His initials. And inside the locket, when he opened it, was a tiny photo, of a little boy who looked unmistakably like him. Adrian stood frozen in the downpour, the locket trembling in his hand. The rain no longer felt cold, it felt heavy, pressing against his chest with the weight of 1,000 questions. The boy's face stared back at him through the fogged glass of the tiny photo, same dark eyes, same stubborn chin. He looked about 5. 5 years old. That was the year Elena disappeared. He felt the world tilt beneath him. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." He drove aimlessly that night, headlights cutting through the storm, his heart louder than the engine. Every memory of her came flooding back, the quiet way she'd lingered in doorways, the way his mother had smiled whenever Elena entered the room, and, God help him, the single night he had let his guard down. It had been the night after his mother's funeral. He'd been shattered, drowning in whiskey and loneliness. She'd found him in the study, sobbing into his hands, something no one else had ever seen. She hadn't spoken. Just held him. One night. One secret. One mistake, or was it mercy? And then she was gone. Now, 5 years later, fate had dragged her back into his storm. The next morning, sunlight broke through the clouds, but Adrian couldn't shake the image of the boy's face. He had his secretary cancel all his meetings. There were more important things than mergers. He found her address through quiet inquiries, an unassuming cottage on the edge of town, small but full of life. A white fence, wind chimes, a garden that clearly knew her touch. When he arrived, he hesitated at the gate. A child's laughter drifted from inside. Then he saw them. Elena knelt in the yard, helping a little boy fix a toy car. The boy's hair gleamed in the sunlight, his grin wide and unguarded. When he laughed, it was Adrian's laugh. His chest ached. He stepped forward, gravel crunching beneath his shoes. Elena looked up, and froze. The boy followed her gaze. "Mommy," the boy whispered, clutching her arm. "Who's that man?" Her lips trembled. "That's someone I used to know." Adrian's voice was low. "Elena. Why didn't you tell me?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Because you were never meant to be part of this life, Adrian. You had your world, and I had to build mine. I deserved to know my son." Her face hardened with pain. "Did you? The man who never saw the people who served him? The one who was too busy chasing power to look at what was right in front of him?" He couldn't argue. She was right. He had been blind. Then the boy, their boy, stood, clutching his small car, and looked between them. "Mommy, why is he sad?" Elena turned away, her shoulders shaking. Adrian knelt, forcing a shaky smile. Because he just realized he missed something very, very important. The boy tilted his head, curious. "Like what?" Adrian met Elena's eyes. "Like you." The silence that followed was fragile, like glass between them, full of heartbreak, love, and the ghosts of years lost. Elena took a step back, whispering, "You should go, Adrian. Please. Don't make this harder." But before he could speak again, the sound of screeching tires broke the air. A black SUV roared down the road, straight toward the garden gate. Elena screamed. The boy turned in shock. Adrian lunged forward. And everything went white. The world exploded in sound, shattering glass, twisting metal, a scream that wasn't entirely human. Then, silence. Rain began to fall again, soft and hesitant, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. When Adrian opened his eyes, the air was thick with smoke and panic. He was lying on the gravel, pain flaring through his shoulder. The black SUV had crashed into the fence, its front crumpled like paper. Elena's cries pierced the haze. "Elena," he rasped, struggling to his feet. "Daniel, where's Daniel?" She was on the ground, holding their son close. The boy was trembling but unhurt. Relief hit Adrian like sunlight through storm clouds. He dropped beside them, wrapping his arms around both. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice breaking. Elena nodded shakily. Yes, we're fine. You pushed us out of the way." But before she could finish, the SUV's door creaked open. A man stumbled out, clutching his head, bleeding but alive. Elena's face went pale. "No," she whispered. "Not him." Adrian turned sharply. "You know this man?" She swallowed hard, her eyes full of old fear. "That's Marcus Holloway. My former boss." Adrian's jaw clenched. "The same Marcus Holloway who tried to buy out Cole Enterprises last year?" "Yes," she said, voice trembling. "He wasn't just my employer, Adrian. He wanted me to marry him. When I refused, when he found out I was pregnant, he swore he'd make me regret it." The truth hit like thunder. All these years, she hadn't left because she wanted to, she'd escaped. Marcus staggered toward them, fury in his bloodshot eyes. "So this is where you've been hiding," he spat. "With him." Adrian stepped forward, shielding Elena and the boy. His voice was low, dangerous. "If you touch them, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Marcus laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You think you can protect her now? You don't even know the full story." Elena's fingers tightened on Adrian's arm. "Don't listen to him." But Marcus smirked through the blood on his lip. "She never told you who signed her release papers when she left your mansion, did she? Who paid her silence fee?" Adrian froze. "What are you talking about?" Marcus's grin widened. "Ask your father." The words fell like a blade through the storm. "My father's dead," Adrian said flatly. Marcus tilted his head. "Then maybe you should check his will. It's all there, Cole. Every signature. Every lie." Elena gasped, tears filling her eyes. "Adrian. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." Adrian stepped back, the world spinning again. The truth, the years, the guilt, all colliding in one brutal revelation. Before he could speak, sirens wailed in the distance. Marcus laughed one last time, turning toward the road, just as a gunmetal flash caught the sunlight. Elena screamed. The boy cried out. Adrian turned. A shot rang out. Then silence. The gunshot cracked through the morning air like lightning splitting the sky. Birds scattered from the nearby trees, and for a long, terrible moment, no one moved. Then Adrian felt it, a warm wetness spreading across his sleeve. He looked down. Elena was in his arms, her eyes wide with shock. "Elena, no, stay with me," he choked out, pressing his hand against the wound just below her shoulder. Blood seeped through his fingers, scarlet against her pale blouse. Daniel's cries pierced the chaos. "Mommy! Mommy!" "It's okay," Adrian whispered, voice breaking. "You're going to be okay." The police sirens grew louder, tires screeching against the wet pavement. Officers swarmed the scene, shouting orders, pulling Marcus to the ground as he screamed incoherently. He wasn't supposed to shoot. Marcus bellowed as they pinned him down. It wasn't me, it wasn't. But Adrian didn't hear the rest. All his focus was on Elena. Her hand trembled as she reached for his face. I never wanted you to find out like this, she whispered. Not with him involved. Don't talk, he said, voice thick with tears. You're going to be fine, Elena. Just hold on. Her eyes fluttered. Adrian, the locket. There's something inside. Behind the picture. You have to read it. What are you talking about? She tried to smile through the pain. Your father, he wasn't the man you think he was. He tried to protect us. Before he could ask more, the medics arrived, lifting her carefully onto a stretcher. Adrian held her hand until they pulled her away, his heart tearing with every inch of distance. Hours later, the hospital was eerily quiet. Daniel slept beside him in a chair, his small hand clutching Adrian's jacket. The locket sat in Adrian's palm, still streaked with rain and blood. He remembered Elena's words and gently pried the back panel open. A tiny, folded paper slipped out, aged, fragile. He unfolded it carefully. It was a letter. To my son, Adrian, if you are reading this, then my secrets have found their way back to you. Years ago, one of my employees, Elena Morales, became the target of a man named Marcus Holloway. I paid for her silence, not to buy her off, but to protect her from him. You must understand, son, I did what I thought was right, even if it cost me your trust one day. There's one more thing you should know. Elena's child is yours. I learned this before I died. I only hope one day, you'll find them, and do what I could not. Protect them. Love them. Your father. Adrian's breath caught. The room swayed. All those years he'd resented his father's coldness, the secrecy, the control, never knowing it had all been for her. For them. He pressed the letter to his chest, tears burning his eyes. A soft voice came from the doorway. Mr. Cole? He turned. A nurse stood there, hesitant. The doctors need you in ICU. It's about Miss Morales. Adrian's heart stopped. Is she? She's asking for you. He ran down the hallway, every step echoing like thunder in his chest. He burst into the room. Elena lay pale against the white sheets, machines beeping steadily. Her eyes fluttered open when she saw him. Adrian, she whispered. I told you. I didn't want you to find me like this. He took her hand, kissed her knuckles. We have time now. You and me, and Daniel. Tears rolled down her cheeks. If there's time left. He leaned closer, voice breaking. Don't say that. We'll fix everything. My father, he knew. He tried to protect you. Her eyes widened slightly. Then maybe, it's not too late. Before he could answer, a commotion erupted in the hall. The door burst open. Marcus Holloway stood there, blood still crusted on his forehead, one arm free from his handcuffs. His eyes burned with madness. And in his hand, was a gun. Marcus filled the doorway, wild-eyed and shaking. The small hospital room seemed to shrink around him. Don't come any closer, Adrian said quietly, moving to stand between Marcus and the bed. Behind him, Elena gripped the rail, her face pale but fierce. You took everything from me. Marcus spat. The company deal, the woman. You did that yourself, Adrian said. You turned every good thing into a threat. Marcus's hand trembled. The weapon wavered. For a heartbeat, the only sound was the rhythmic beeping of Elena's monitor, steady, defiant. Please, Elena said softly. You don't have to do this. You can still choose a different ending. Her words hung in the air like a prayer. Marcus blinked, something cracking in his expression. Then, before he could answer, the door burst open behind him. Officers rushed in, shouting commands. One of them reached Marcus, the gun clattered to the floor. And then it was over. Marcus sank to his knees, sobbing, as they led him away. The storm that had haunted them all finally began to lift. Hours later, twilight painted the hospital windows gold. Adrian sat beside Elena, her hand resting in his. Daniel slept in a chair nearby, curled up beneath a blanket far too big for him. You saved us, she whispered. He smiled faintly. You saved me first. In more ways than you'll ever know. She looked at him, eyes glistening. So what happens now, Mr. Cole? He chuckled softly. First, you stop calling me that. And then? Then, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face, we start over. No secrets. No storms. Just us, and him. She exhaled, a tear slipping free, but her smile was real this time. A fresh start. Exactly. A nurse peeked in, whispering that visiting hours were nearly over. Adrian rose, kissed Elena's forehead, and promised, I'll be here in the morning. As he turned to leave, the rain began again, soft, cleansing, almost musical. He looked back once more at the woman who had changed everything. But as he stepped into the hallway, his phone buzzed. A new email. No sender. No subject line. He opened it. Only one sentence appeared on the screen. You don't know the whole truth about your father, or Elena. And below it, a single attachment, a photo of his father shaking hands with Marcus Holloway. Adrian's breath caught. The screen flickered, and went black. Perfect choice. We'll keep the tension of the mystery alive in the background, but let the heart of the chapter be about love, forgiveness, and the quiet redemption of two people who have been through the storm. The message on Adrian's phone replayed in his mind all night. You don't know the whole truth about your father, or Elena. But for the first time in years, fear didn't drive him, love did. By dawn, the rain had stopped. A pale gold light spilled through the hospital window where Elena slept, her breathing soft and steady. Daniel was still curled up in the chair, his toy car clutched in one small hand. Adrian stood watching them, a quiet ache in his chest. He hadn't realized how desperately he'd needed something simple, peace, presence, a reason to stay. He knelt beside the bed and brushed a loose strand of hair from Elena's face. Her eyes fluttered open, hazy with sleep. You're still here, she whispered. Where else would I be? He said softly. She smiled faintly. You used to be halfway across the world by sunrise. Maybe I finally found something worth staying for. Her gaze held his, full of memories, forgiveness, and 1,000 words unspoken. You don't owe me anything, Adrian, she said. You've already done enough. He shook his head. I owe you everything. I should have seen you back then, really seen you. Instead, I let my world become too loud for the people who mattered. Elena reached for his hand, their fingers fitting together like pieces of something that had once been broken and now, finally, found their way back. "I never stopped believing you had goodness in you," she said. "Even when you didn't see it yourself." He smiled, eyes damp. "Maybe that's what love really is, someone seeing the light when all you can feel is the dark." The moment lingered, quiet, steady, healing. Then Daniel stirred and blinked sleepily. "Mommy? Is the rain gone?" Elena nodded, smoothing his hair. "For now." Adrian crouched beside him. "You know, sometimes rain just makes things grow." The boy looked thoughtful. "Like the garden?" "Exactly," Adrian said, glancing at Elena. "Like second chances." A week later, Elena was discharged from the hospital. Adrian insisted on driving her home, this time without storms, without secrets. The countryside glowed under the late afternoon sun, and laughter, soft, unfamiliar laughter, filled the car. When they reached the little cottage, Daniel ran ahead to chase a butterfly, his joy echoing through the garden. Elena stood beside Adrian, looking out at the small, beautiful life she had built. "You don't have to come back here," she said gently. "You've got a company, a whole world waiting for you." He turned to her, eyes warm. "That world feels empty without you in it." She blushed, looking down. "You always did know what to say when it mattered." He took a step closer. "No, I always knew what to feel when you were near, I just didn't know how to listen to it." The wind stirred the trees. Somewhere behind them, Daniel's laughter carried like a melody. Adrian reached into his pocket and held out the silver locket, now polished, mended, shining again. "Keep it," he said. "Not as a secret. As a promise." Elena's eyes shimmered. "What kind of promise?" "That no matter what comes next, no matter what the past still hides, we'll face it together." She smiled through tears and whispered, "Then I'll hold you to that, Mr. Cole." He grinned. "Adrian. Just Adrian." And as the sun dipped behind the hills, she rose on her toes and kissed him, soft, trembling, certain. The rain was gone, but its memory had left the world greener. Later that night, as they sat together watching Daniel sleep, Adrian's phone buzzed again. A new message. No name. No number. Just one line. "Your father's final gift isn't what you think. Look inside the locket again." He glanced at Elena. She met his eyes, heart pounding. Slowly, he opened the locket once more. Something inside it caught the light, a second, hidden compartment he hadn't noticed before. The cottage was quiet except for the whisper of wind through the curtains. Elena and Adrian sat side by side on the couch, the locket resting between them on the coffee table, glinting faintly in the lamplight. Daniel had fallen asleep in his room, a fortress of toy cars guarding his pillow. The peace in that small sound, a child's steady breathing, made the world outside seem very far away. Adrian turned the locket over in his hands. "There's something else inside," he murmured. Elena leaned closer. "Maybe we should wait until morning." He smiled. "If the past has waited this long, it can wait one more hour, but I need to know what your heart says." She hesitated, then nodded. "Together." Adrian pressed gently against the tiny hinge hidden behind the photo. The panel clicked open, revealing a folded scrap of faded parchment no bigger than a postage stamp. Inside, a few lines were written in his father's familiar hand. "For the one who finds this, love is the only inheritance that outlives the storms. When you read this, go to the place where rain first found you. There, You'll know what I could never say aloud. Elena's eyes widened. The place where rain first found you. That night, the road? Adrian nodded slowly. The night my car broke down. She smiled softly. Maybe your father knew something we didn't, that sometimes you have to be stranded to be found. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind that didn't need to be filled. Then Adrian reached for her hand. Come with me tomorrow. We'll find it together. The next afternoon, the sky was clear but the earth still smelled of rain. They drove to the same winding road where fate had played its strange trick. The world looked gentler now, fields washed clean, the air sweet with promise. At the curve where his car had stalled weeks ago, a small oak tree stood alone. Its trunk was rough and scarred by lightning, yet at its base, new shoots of green pushed through the soil. Elena knelt and brushed the dirt away. Beneath the roots lay a weathered tin box. Adrian opened it carefully. Inside was a single envelope addressed in his father's hand. For Adrian and the woman who taught him to see. Elena's breath caught. Adrian unfolded the letter. Asterisk, my son, if you have found this, it means you have chosen love over pride. I made mistakes, built walls of power and silence that hurt everyone I wished to protect. But I saw in Elena what I once saw in your mother, courage enough to forgive a broken man. My legacy was never the company. It was the people brave enough to love beyond it. Protect them, and you'll honor me more than any empire ever could. Asterisk. Elena wiped a tear from her cheek. He knew we'd come together someday. Adrian folded the letter back into its box and smiled through his own tears. Maybe that's what destiny really is, a father's prayer whispered into a storm. He turned toward her. Elena, I don't know what the future holds, but I know I don't want to face it without you. She met his gaze, eyes bright. Then let's make a new one, no more secrets, no more running. He took her hands, kissed them softly. Deal. A warm breeze rippled through the grass, and for a moment the world felt suspended, sunlight breaking through clouds, a promise written in the air. Daniel came running up the hill, laughing. Look! A rainbow. They looked up. The colors arched across the sky, faint but perfect, an echo of every storm they'd survived. Elena smiled, resting her head on Adrian's shoulder. Your father got his wish. Adrian nodded, voice low. And so did I. The locket gleamed once more, catching the light like a heart finally whole. The rain that once broke them had become the rain that blessed them. The road looked different now. The same stretch of countryside where rain once turned to chaos was lined with wildflowers, bright and untamed. The old oak tree stood taller, its branches wide and strong, roots hidden deep in the same earth that once held a secret letter. A silver car pulled up beside it. Adrian stepped out, suit jacket slung casually over his shoulder, the sunlight glinting in his hair. The years had been kind to him, not in smoothing away every scar, but in teaching him how to carry them. The passenger door opened, and Elena stepped out with a laugh, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Her smile was still the same, the one that had once been quiet and careful, now open and alive. From the back seat, a boy's voice piped up. Are we really here again, Dad? Adrian grinned. We are, Daniel. I wanted to show you where everything changed. Daniel, taller now, full of boundless energy, ran ahead toward the oak. He wore a tiny version of his father's old cufflinks on his shirt, a birthday gift from Elena. This is where the rain found us, Adrian said softly, his arm slipping around Elena's shoulders. Where everything that went wrong started to go right. She rested her head against him. It feels like a lifetime ago. He smiled. It was. But it's also right here, still. Daniel crouched at the tree's base, digging gently with his hands. Mom. Dad. Look what I found. He held up the weathered tin box, the same one his parents had found years ago. The years had tarnished it further, but the initials on the lid, AC, still gleamed faintly. Adrian knelt beside him, touched the box, and smiled. Some things stay to remind us that love leaves traces, even after the storm. Elena bent down and placed the silver locket beside it. And some stories, she said quietly, are meant to stay where they began. Daniel looked between them, puzzled. So, this is the end? Adrian chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. No, buddy. This is where it started. They stood together beneath the oak, the sunlight filtering through the leaves like gold dust. Far off, thunder rolled, distant, harmless, like an old song that no longer frightened them. Elena reached for Adrian's hand, and he squeezed back, their fingers steady and sure. Come on, she said. Let's go home. As they walked back to the car, the first drops of a gentle rain began to fall, soft, forgiving, full of memory. But this time, no one ran for cover. They simply lifted their faces to the sky and let it wash over them, the storm that once broke them now blessing the path ahead. Morning sunlight slipped through the curtains of the kitchen, laying golden ribbons across the table where Elena stood pouring coffee. The aroma mixed with the scent of rain-damp earth drifting in through the open window. Adrian came in quietly, sleeves rolled, still a little clumsy in his efforts to help. The man who once commanded boardrooms now looked oddly content struggling with a frying pan. You're supposed to flip the pancakes once, Elena teased. He glanced up, caught mid-attempt, a guilty grin spreading across his face. Technically, that was one continuous flip. You mean 3. He laughed, that deep sound she'd learned to love, the laugh of a man who'd finally allowed himself to be human. Daniel stumbled in next, half awake and dragging his backpack. Do I have to go to school? It's raining. Adrian handed him a plate. If we waited for clear skies, we'd never get anywhere, kiddo. Daniel sighed but smiled. You sound like Mom. Elena glanced up from the coffee pot. That's because he finally started listening. Adrian winked. Best decision I ever made. Later, after the morning rush and Daniel's cheerful goodbye, the house fell into a companionable hush. The world outside was gray and calm, the kind of day that asked for gentleness. Elena sat by the window, sketching designs for the small community center she and Adrian were helping to build, her dream project, one he'd quietly funded but never claimed credit for. He joined her with 2 mugs of tea, setting one beside her sketchpad. Remember when everything we built was made of glass and steel? He asked softly. She smiled without looking up. Now we build with time and patience. He touched her hand lightly. And a little flour and coffee. She leaned into his shoulder. Do you miss it? The noise, the power? He thought for a long moment. Sometimes I miss the speed. But then I look at this. He gestured to the window, where Daniel's soccer ball lay half buried in the grass, the garden blooming wildly around it. And I realize this is the only thing that ever really moved me. Elena set down her pencil and turned to him, eyes warm. You found your peace. He shook his head gently. You found it for me. I just learned to keep it." They sat together as the rain began again, slow and steady, the sound soft as breathing. No thunder this time, only the rhythm of a home that had learned how to survive every storm. Adrian reached for the locket that still hung around her neck, running his thumb over its surface. "You ever think about how something that once held secrets now just holds light?" Elena smiled. "That's what love does to secrets." That evening, Daniel came home with muddy shoes and a proud grin. "I scored a goal in the rain." Adrian laughed. "Then I guess it's our kind of weather." Elena caught his gaze over their son's head. The look said everything: gratitude, wonder, quiet joy. Later, when the house fell silent again, Adrian stood at the doorway watching Elena tuck Daniel into bed. The small lamp cast a golden circle around them, and in that moment he realized this was what redemption looked like: not grand gestures, not apologies shouted over storms, but the gentle rhythm of ordinary love. As he turned out the lights, Elena slipped her hand into his. "Good night, Mr. Cole," she whispered teasingly. He smiled, pressing a kiss to her hair. "It's Adrian. Always Adrian." They walked down the hall together, the rain still falling outside, but inside, everything was warm, steady, and whole. The morning sun climbed over the hills, touching the glass of the Cole Foundation headquarters. In the lobby, a bronze plaque caught the light. "For every storm that taught us how to love what stays. A. and E. Cole." Daniel Cole stood in front of it, a briefcase in one hand and a paper coffee cup in the other. He was older now, tall, steady, carrying his father's quiet confidence and his mother's calm warmth. Outside, the rain had just stopped. Drops still clung to the windows like fragments of an old story refusing to fade completely. He smiled, remembering how his parents used to tell him, "Rain isn't the end of a day, it's how the day remembers to begin again." He found his parents in the garden behind the building, the same one his mother had designed years ago for children from the community. Elena was kneeling in the soil, tending a small bed of flowers, her hands dirt-stained and happy. Adrian was nearby, coaxing a new sapling upright. Daniel called out, "You two ever take a day off?" Adrian looked up, laughing. "We did once. Got bored." Elena stood, brushing her hands on her jeans. "When did our son turn into the man who worries about us?" "Somewhere between college and now," Daniel said, smiling. "I just wanted to stop by before my flight." He hesitated, then pulled a small, polished object from his pocket, the old silver locket, restored once more. "I kept it," he said quietly. "Thought maybe it should travel with me. You know, for luck." Elena's eyes softened. "You already carry what it gave us," she said. "But if you want it, it's yours." Adrian added, "It's a reminder that even the strongest storms leave something worth keeping." Daniel nodded, slipped the chain around his neck, and looked out across the garden. The air smelled of wet earth and new beginnings. "I think I finally understand what you meant about rain," he said. "It doesn't wash things away, it teaches you what roots can survive." Elena smiled. "Exactly." He hugged them both, holding a little longer than he meant to. Then, stepping back toward the gate, he turned and waved. "Love you, Mom." "Love you, Dad." Adrian raised a hand. "Go make something grow, son." Daniel laughed, walking into the light drizzle that had started again, the locket glinting against his shirt. Back in the garden, Adrian slipped his arm around Elena's shoulders. They watched their son disappear down the path, the same road where everything had once fallen apart and then, somehow, found its way home again. Elena leaned her head against him. Funny, isn't it? We spent half our lives fearing storms. Adrian kissed her temple, whispering, and the other half learning to dance in them. The rain began to fall, soft and golden in the sunlight. Around them, the flowers lifted their faces to the sky, drinking it in. And love, like rain, kept finding its way back.